Now, after a year of going back and forth between the Sony FX30 and the Fuji X-H2S, eventually I decided to go with the Fuji. But do I regret purchasing this camera instead of the FX30 after a month of owning it? Let's talk about it, man. What's up, YouTube? My name's Anton. I'm a filmmaker and photographer from Belgium under the name of JD Creatives. And I've been shooting Fuji ever since I purchased my second camera. Now, my first camera was the Canon M50. I use that camera for about anything, like photography, videography, really getting the hang of the craft, and I really fell in love with the craft. So after selling that M50, I went with the Fuji system. I bought the X-T2, which I have right here, which is still my backup camera. Then I went on to buy the XS10 to really, progress in my filmmaking and photography. And then I came to a point where I was like, okay, I'm gonna buy my first real, in my opinion, real pro camera, and I'm gonna buy it new. Before that, I always bought used, but I came to a point where I was like, okay, now I'm gonna buy my first real camera. Now, I'm a YouTube guy. I watch YouTube videos all day, and every cinematic video that I saw that I fucking loved was always Sony, like A7S III, FX3, FX6, FX30, always shot in S-Log3. So I was like, damn, man, that Sony system, it had something about it. Now, of course, I know if you know how to color, you should be able to make any camera look like any other camera. But we as humans, we get attracted to different systems and different features and products and everything like that. So Sony was really intriguing to me. Now, the A7S III and the FX3 were already out of my league, too expensive, but the FX30 with that APS-C sensor was really, really appealing to me. And on the Fujifilm side, there was the X-H2S, which I'm filming on right now. Really appealing features. I saw Vuhlandes make a video about it and stating that he absolutely loved that camera. Seeing what he did with that camera in that video, if I didn't know it was shot on the Fujifilm, I would probably think that it was shot on his regular FX3, which he always uses. So you should be able to make anything look like anything else. But I was going back and forth, man. Like, I didn't know what to decide, and eventually it came down to a few things. First thing was lenses. I already owned a couple of Fujifilm lenses. I had the Sigma 18-50. I had the 35 f2. I have the Sigma Art 18-35, which is not a Fuji lens, but I adapted to my Fujifilm cameras with an adapter, so that was already in place there. And I didn't have any Sony lenses, so that was something like, okay, I'm gonna adapt all my other lenses again. So I don't have any native lenses, which the Sigma 18-50, which I'm filming on right now, I absolutely love that lens. Made a video about it as well. So that wasn't really appealing to me, to buy adapters again or buy the 18-50 again for the Sony E-mount. So that was the first thing that kind of, drew me towards the Fujifilm side. Another thing were the CF Express type cards. This uses the CF Express type B cards, and if I'm not mistaken, the Sony uses the CF Express type A cards, which are way more expensive. So that was another drawback to the Sony system. And then eventually, a hybrid system. This is an amazing photo camera. You have an EVF. I sold my XS10, so I really needed something else to shoot photo with as well. And the FX30, it shoots photo, but it doesn't really have a viewfinder. It's not really a photo camera. You can take pictures with it, but it's a video-centric camera. This is an awesome camera for video and photo. So that was kind of the major selling point as well. So I was like rationally, it didn't really make sense to go with the Sony, although I really, really wanted to try it and see if it was something for me, with the great autofocus and everything for a solo filmmaker. That's awesome. But I'm going to talk about the autofocus of the Fuji in a bit. But, a couple things that rationally just made me go like, okay, I'm going to go with the Fuji. Also, price-wise, the FX30 is actually a little bit more expensive than in other parts of the world. Currently is a little over 2,000 euros here in Belgium. It has recently gone down in price here. Go figure. And the Fujifilm, believe it or not, but it was 2,250 euros on some sites, and on other sites it was 2,750, so a $500 difference. Like, what the? I managed to find one at the lowest price mark, so 2,250, because I saw it was going up in price on some sites where it was 2,250 originally. It went up to 2,750, so it just made sense to me. So I went with the Fuji. Now, do I regret the decision of going with the Fuji? When I first got the camera, I was trying it out. Autofocus was certainly a lot better than it was in the XS10. And then there was a firmware update. And I decided to go online, you know, look for the firmware update, then check the firmware of my camera, and it was like 2 updates behind or something like that. And I decided to download the update and put it on my camera. And then I actually regretted my decision a lot for a couple of days, because I was making a birth video of our daughter. We recently became parents, my wife and I. We had a daughter about 3 weeks ago, and you know, I was filming everything on the X-H2S, and at first it was all good, you know, good autofocus and everything like that. Struggled with F-Log a bit, but I will talk about that in a minute. But once I downloaded that firmware update, it was so bad. Like, it was hunting like crazy. If I was filming my wife in front of a window, it was just going all over the place, and I was just so upset that I didn't think that they were gonna probably fix it anytime soon, and I was stuck with a camera that I just bought, and the autofocus was just worse than like an hour before when I was using the older firmware, and that was really a bummer. But then I decided, you know, to mess around with the settings, with the tracking, the speed, you know, and just dial everything to the left, to the right, to the middle, whatnot, and just try different things. And I managed to find a balance that works for me, and it's probably not back up to that level that it was. I don't know why, it's just the feeling that I have, but it's certainly up there again, better than the XS10 and everything like that. So kind of an odd turn of events, but probably the best in the Fujifilm system as of right now, but it was better when I bought it. So let's just keep it at that. Then the F-Log 2 profile. I was so stoked to use this profile. I was looking at videos online and everything like that. The dynamic range was supposed to be incredible. I made a video about that as well. And I was testing it, and dynamic range is incredible on F-Log 2. Let me get that out of the way. It is incredible. But the noise is also pretty incredible, in my opinion. In a lot of situations, you will have to use noise reduction, which on my M1 MacBook Pro, the first generation with 8 gigs of RAM, it doesn't really handle noise reduction all that great, like not at all. So noise reduction for me is a problem to use, especially in exporting a video. It takes forever, like forever. I recently made a video about our trip to Portugal, and I did some noise reduction on some drone clips at the end of the video. It's like a minute long video, and I think the clips of the drone, a Mini 2 by the way, is what I use right now. It was pretty noisy because it was late. The sun was setting, and I was filming, you know, in dark spots in like caves and everything like that. I used noise reduction for probably like 10 or 15 seconds, and I think the export took about like an hour or 2 hours for a minute long video with 10 seconds of noise reduction. So imagine doing like a minute long video or a minute and a half, or a wedding. I'm doing a wedding this weekend. Imagine doing a wedding like 4 or 5 minutes where you have to use like noise reduction maybe half of the video. On this computer, that's gonna take a while. Like, I'm not watching any Netflix for a while, you know, like that's out the window. So yeah, not that great in my opinion. Dynamic range is awesome. If you're underexposing a bit and you have to raise your shadows in F-Log 2, it looks noisy, really noisy. So that's kind of a bummer for me. I didn't really expect the noise to be that prominent, but there are probably workarounds. But as of right now, I'm still trying to figure it out. I know the FX30 has like dual native ISO, like 800 and 2500, which is also pretty nice. But you know, I bought this camera, so F-Log 2, bit of a bummer, still working on it. So yeah, so those were the main reasons that initially kind of made me regret buying this camera at first. Like the first week the autofocus was great, as I talked about, but then when the autofocus went like worse, significantly worse, and then I struggled with the F-Log 2 profile, I was not happy for a few days. Like I was really thinking about sending this camera back if I was still able to do that, and just buying an FX30 and being like, fuck this. But then when I kind of figured the autofocus out, you know, messing with the settings and everything, and kind of finding a sweet spot there, which is almost up to par as it was, and then sometimes, you know, exposing the F-Log 2 correctly and not getting that much noise, I was pretty happy with this camera. I mean, it's an amazing photo camera as well. I've been taking pictures on it forever. Colors are amazing as well. Still trying to figure out how to color F-Log 2 to my taste, but it's fun working with the profile. So 10-bit, never had had 10-bit in a Fujifilm camera. 10-bit is amazing. I have a GH5 as well, so I'm used to working with 10-bit, and the Vlog is also pretty amazing. While 8-bit is pretty manageable, it still falls apart pretty quickly. So right now, I do not regret it, but I've had a couple of days, probably a week to 10 days ago, where I had a few days where I absolutely regretted buying this camera. The F-Log 2, I was struggling so hard with it, and then the autofocus went bad, and I was like, I told my wife, this fucking sucks, big time. But you bought it, there's no turning back, decided to put time in it, effort in it, managed to get it to a point where I'm okay with it. The F-Log 2, still struggling with it, but it's fine. As of right now, no regrets. But initially there were a couple of regrets. In the future, I'm still dreaming about owning an FX3. Just that dual native ISO alone, I mean, 12,800 is just insane. I would so want to test that out at night, like on a beach or something. Yeah, sounds absolutely awesome. Low light on this is not bad, but it gets noisy. I mean, it's APS-C, no dual native ISO, so it gets noisy, but the noise on Fujifilm is actually not that bad. Probably better than the digital noise on other manufacturers. That's it. That's my experience of owning this camera for about a month now. It's good enough, and I'm happy with the camera, and for the foreseeable future, this is absolutely going to be my workhorse. So yeah, that's it. On to the next one. Bye.